goals. This afternoon, it went out early afternoon. Could you kind of indicate that you might like a minute to look at that? Okay. Let's take a minute to look at that and have a bite of pizza and just review these. And
Mayor,
yes, sir.
if I could, I think that we're going to go through the different cores individually. So I think that'd be fine when they could be reviewed in that instant, just on the specific sections that we identified at the retreat.
Okay.
So I think we can talk through this, and if you don't mind, we'll go through a few slides and talk about where we started, where we're getting to, and how we'll do it. That's all right.
Okay. So you want to start that now?
Yeah, let's go start that. So, yes, the year is starting. So one of the main things that came out of that is the city council went to have a value statement. The statement that was developed in January is there in your spreadsheet. We value the natural resources throughout our community, the health and well-being of our citizens, including those most vulnerable. We want to build a long-term sustainable and healthy community. My vision for that is that it'll be included as part of the resolution that gets adopted, that signifies your goals for the upcoming fiscal year. The one change that we did make this year, just as a note, is we tried to move the goals from being an annual goal to coincide with the fiscal year, which I think that lines up well for us. It allows us to have that 4 years opportunity to know what we're working on and try to get some things. I think we'll hopefully see some better benefit out of that as we move forward. When we moved into the development process, we looked to develop the core strategic priorities, the goals, deliverables, outcomes, metrics, and if they were SMART goals. How do we look at the definitions? Specific, measurable, achievable. I'm just designing out Portland. Realistic, and time out. So that to make sure that the girls have that kind of opportunity, which I think we accomplished with the first round of what we have established. Through that, we had actually moved on to identify the core strategic priorities: financial sustainability, community engagement, communication, infrastructure, economic development, housing. If we go to the very first one, financial sustainability, there were two goals that were two main goals: evaluate all revenue streams to maximize long-term sustainability prior to annual budget implementation. We'll be working on that over the next section. And then maintain user fees rates to sustain critical water, wastewater, solid waste, and other general infrastructure, and continue seeking additional supplemental funding sources. Out of that, I reached out to staff and had each staff member kind of provide what we thought the bigger deliverables might be, and came up with these deliverables, which if you're following along on the spreadsheet is that section. The city manager's office will work with appropriate members of the leadership team to determine focus areas for revenue maximization for fiscal year 2027 in areas where the city has control over user rates. That's one deliverable. If revenue maximization efforts are not sufficient to meet the need, then the city manager's office will engage with city council in the spring of 2027 to evaluate revenue options that require board approval or budget reductions, depending on the preferences. So, and is it all right if I turn it over to you to describe those out just a little bit?
So, kind of along with the theme of right-sizing government, there's a lot of ways we can do that. And what we have done in Laramie for many years is we get by on a shoestring. And the shoestring is just really thin because our operations haven't grown enough, where what we have is layer upon layer and layer of extra duties. And we have this buildup of stress and need. And that's really when you hear Todd say right-sizing government, that's what we're trying to solve. But even though our revenue sources have grown, right? They've grown in terms of having online sales tax, and that's really helped. We were able to get that invested back into people. We've made some positive growth. We've added a Parks and Rec director, which we didn't have, a community and economic development director, some positions to support those. Those are really foundational, right? That we didn't have that for so long says something. And so we're about at that point at this budget year that we've invested almost as much as we can with the revenue streams that we have. And so we'll be looking to maximize the things that we do have control over in a way that residents will support, because it doesn't do us any good, right? To come up with plans that we don't think our community can support. And so that's where we're going to look first. If we need to start looking deeper than that, or if you all have policy visions that are maybe outside of our existing revenue sources, that's when we take a look at maybe the submission of voter through taxes as a recommendation. And if that is something that the council would feel is wise, then we might start looking at where we could make some reductions in services that are a little bit less essential or less utilized, so that we can grow in areas that really are community priorities. But that's going to be a long and winding road with lots of discussions and lots of internal conversations as well. And so we feel like we need to start down that journey and have those real and open and honest conversations.
And I think with that in mind, with suggestions recently heard from council members for us to find ways to be more supportive to development, et cetera. That's why we considered adding resource and financial development as one of our public goals, since it is so intricate and people don't seem to understand the intricacies involved. And they sometimes act like we're the fairy godmother and we can just make it happen. So that's why we added that. We know that that runs through everything, but we thought to pull that out because it is over the next 2 years going to be quite a challenge. Yes.
If I could add something there, I love what you just said, which is, it's so integral to what we do, but we want to make it look almost like magic because it's so well planned and it's so well thought and we put so much care into it, right? And so we don't want to talk about these things in a way that is scary or off-putting or, because that finance always first, like the hammer that maybe was common in like the 1980s or something like that. We want to have it be something that's more intentional so that when we get there, you're right, maybe it does look like we worked magic, but we really didn't.
Right.
We just were great planners.
And I appreciate the recent changes over the past few years to make it more and more open. And I think it helps people be more realistic about their expectations. So I don't want them to get in the middle of the drudgery of it all, but I do want them to see the finesse that goes into right sizing a city. I think it's really important.
Mayor, now is probably a good time to hear from the councilors if there's any changes, anything you suggest other financials. Oh, I guess we could talk about the next section. By August 1st, 2026, City Manager's Office will work with appropriate members of the leadership team to update the 10-year financial plans for each utility service, ensuring that operational and capital needs are met. As we work through the budget process, Director Wade and myself have talked a lot about how do we manage the 10-year plan for water, wastewater, and solid waste, and make sure that our capital plans are commensurate so that we don't put too much impact on the users. But there's also a chance that we might have to look at those rates and decide where we're going to go with those rates. We're like is discussed there, right sizing capital budgets, support unnecessary buildup of reserves, and planning for significant contingency. One case in point that we do have to take a bite at is the replacement of the water treatment plant. We've been through an optimization study here just recently, but it's time. And just as a fair warning, that may be as much as $100 million project, right? And it is time for Laramie as a community to start building up its resources to get that replacement plan in place. And so that's one of the areas that we'll need to work on. And then in January, yes.
Councilor Shelley.
There has been discussion about moving the water treatment plant closer to Laramie. So, closer to Laramie, would that be something that we're considering as we look towards? Because I don't want to spend $100 million, 10 miles away when we can, then move it to, closer to Laramie later on. Is that going to be, does the study indicate that that's a possibility, or what's the thoughts there?
Honorable Mayor, to you, to Councilor Shomai, it will take a study to evaluate what the best replacement method for the water treatment plant is. When it takes into account, it's going to have to take the point sources, Laramie's water reservoir is snowpack, right? So oftentimes you're going to want to be as close to that snowpack as you can to prevent contamination, sedimentation, and get it in treatment, get it piped. And so I could assume that there were lots of great reasons why that water treatment plant was so far out there. There's evaporation, there's all sorts of things, there's ditch loss, there's a lot of reasons for a water treatment plant to land where it was. As we start to study that, we will look at different options for sure about that opportunity, but it won't be something that we make as staff. There'll be design engineers and planners and large decisions that are made, but we have to start that process now, because we as leadership for this community right now need to make sure this community is safe for many, 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 many years at coming.
Vice Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. I recognize this is getting into the weeds just a little bit, but thinking about a $100 million project, if things were continue financially the way that we have been, the path we've been on, how long do you anticipate something like that being? Like, how far out into the future would that be implemented or starting to be done?
Right. I don't want to speak for Director Wade, but in our discussions, we've talked about the need to put $4 to $5 million away for the next 10 years so that we have a sizable match contribution, just some sort of aid, whether it's from the federal government or the state, to make sure that the water treatment plant is a reality.
Thank you.
Councilor Shelley.
No, I won't be here when the time comes, but I was thinking, most of the water that's stored, or the water treatment plant is stored, I was thinking we could maybe move through pipelines the water that's uncontaminated closer to the city and then stored and then treated and then moved to the city. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the treatment plant out there, but it'd be where we capture the water, move it through pipelines towards the city, and then treat it and move it into our water system within the city. Is a possibility.
We appreciate that. And then in January and February, we'll of course come back to the council with ordinance changes that may be in line with the decisions that have been made around those tenure points. So, and now is probably a good time to stop and ask under financial sustainability. Does council feel pretty comfortable with these goals as they've been stated? And as we look forward to moving into the intersection.
Yes.
Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just giving my thumbs up.
I didn't want to ignore you. Councilor Shelley.
$100 million is daunting, but Campbell County received a $100 million grant for water supply distribution in their county. So we need to maybe remind the state legislature for grants or whatever, so that we can do that without putting a huge impact on the city.
We'll move on to the next section. community engagement, communication. I'll change this up a little bit. We'll hit each goal and then we'll talk about the deliverable individually. Update digital infrastructure to increase our online presence. Amount of communication and transparency, which truly I believe that the city of Laramie's come light years over the past few years in our digital presence. As I've been out with the divisions and apartments this spring and visiting, for me, it's about how we get the city of Laramie to break through all the noise that everybody's hearing. We talk a lot about, we had a survey not too long ago, and where people got most of their information is from their neighbor, right? Well, your neighbor oftentimes may not have the right information. And so we're trying to figure out how we break through that. I think it's important that we maintain and secure a public information officer who Owen's been doing a fantastic job as our acting public information officer. It's important that we maintain that. We work with the appropriate leadership team in IT, city manager's office and management team to make sure that we have deploy enhanced focused communication. Here just recently, engineering had advertised and mailed out notices on the Snowy Range Water Project. And when I went to the public meeting, they only had 2 public members show up for a massive project similar to 3rd Street, right? And so I came out to engineering, my guys, you're going to have to walk down every one of those businesses and drop off a flyer and talk to them. Sorry, we can't get through. We have to get through the information. You mail something from the city, it oftentimes goes in the trash. You send an email, they don't read it. So we had to get to them. And so they have done that. And I've received a couple of comments that they appreciated being thrust into that position because we had to break the news of what was coming with that water project because it's going to be impactful on Snowy Range Road.
They called me. Yeah, and I couldn't participate that day. And I was actually driving out that way a little bit later and I saw them walking. I just had no time to do that kind of tour. But then they called me a few days later to see if he could meet with me because he was still going to be in town till about 1. So I called him and I said, no, I cannot. I said, but he said, well, we're going to have a Zoom meeting. We'd like you to be involved in that. So I gave him my email. So they're going to keep me abreast of all the issues. But I saw a lot of people out there that day and I appreciated it. And I said, I just so we know what's going on. Won't surprise us with a shutdown on our streets that we need to know so we can plan ahead. That's all I ask. That we were, said, if you can do that, I'm happy because it's going to be huge.
They are going to be impactful. I was actually most shocked. I visited Brandon Spade at West Laramie Fly Store. I asked him specifically, I said, I was at a public meeting on Snowy Range Road and you weren't there. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I grabbed him by the shoulder. I was like, Brandon, you got to get involved. I didn't actually grab by his shoulder. But we visited about it. I told him what was coming. And that was just, that's a kind of a West Laramie staple, right? And if that business owner didn't know, we obviously didn't break through the noise that is affecting the rest of it. So we had to get out there to talk to them. So
That's the dream.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager. I really like your approach to breaking through the noise because I think that's probably what this council members hear the most about, and it's an easy target. I mean, you can spend $1 million on communication platforms, you can still not reach someone. You can spend all of your staff's time every day knocking doors and still not connect. And so it's kind of a black hole in my mind, but it's something that's really important to try to track down those avenues. And I really appreciate the communication that's happening. And one question, one idea, one question, is Owen's position, is he the current public information officer? Is that something we're trying to figure out and we add more capacity?
Honorable Mayor, through Councilman Brady, Owen's position is a managing analyst, and if I was put in dash, it would be public information officer. And we did secure that for one more year allocation. And I think you'll see in this upcoming budget, or I can highlight it. I don't think we'll see it specifically because we have a budget to cover his request, but the requests are there to remove visibility, to create video, and that's the information that's hopefully going to help get us through to that next one.
Great, yeah, I always support, a public information officer in their own position to support, the mission of all the departments and city manager's office. I think it's a great idea. My only thought is that I've reviewing these goals and wondering, we hear so much about, I didn't know about this, or why are we just hearing about this now? I know there's stuff posted everywhere. I wonder if like any city-owned property, we could almost have like a kiosk, like a digital kiosk or something. Not everywhere, but somewhere downtown, like a parking area, or somewhere in West Laramie, but one of the parks where there's like a digital information booth, and maybe that's City Hall. And I know, Nancy or the clerk's office, people post all that stuff in City Hall, but you have to go with the doors, and we don't have massive billboards where you can look at that. In fact, that was one of the things last year, but I'm not advocating for that. But I'm just thinking of a centralized location where someone is walking their dog, or someone in West Laramie is driving down the street. I don't know, maybe it's a long shot again, it's a black hole if you start thinking of resources and time to reach all 30,000 plus people in our community, but I don't know.
And to Councilor Freed, I think one of the things that I'd be remiss in not noticing is that there's a provisional employee in Parks and Rec that's also upping their digital presence, and got to visit with her just last week. I think one of the things that's really going to be helpful is if we start to tie her under the leadership of Owen to help guide and direct, and together they can find a way to pierce through that noise. I do love your ideas, Councilor Freed, but sometimes I just think, it's hard to get my head wrapped around what's the right place or the right location. What's your advertising? What's Taylor, and she's been doing pretty fantastic stuff for you guys. So,
And we're so different in what they pay attention to. And as far as signs go, I just naturally walk them all around. I don't see any of them. They don't penetrate my. It's as if I drive through town and there are no signs. So I would never see something like that, but I would pick it up in the paper, or might pick it up online or something like that. So trying to figure out where people are paying attention.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. And I guess I'm more thinking of places that people gather. Like the First Street Plaza, not trying to catch drivers' attention, but people in the community that are out. Maybe that's one of the parks, Washington Park, where there's so much activity always happening. Freedom's birthday, events, people renting it out. I was trying to think of places that the city owns property where tons of people congregate, and we could facilitate information transfer. But that's, again, the magic wand of city staff, right? I know that we have limited resources, time, staff, and to go put money in the research into that. I don't know how viable. I just get to throw my ideas at city staff.
Well, we're here to throw ideas around, and Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a question on this one. Because when I'm looking at this update digital infrastructure, I feel like when we first were talking about this, there was some thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, Council, about like our website, and just like when I'm thinking about digital infrastructure, it goes beyond online communication. And so, am I wrong on this? Did other people?
Councilor Newman?
Yeah, I think the conversation, at least the conversation that I think the mayor and I have had. I have to use ChatGPT to find stuff on our website, right? Or I have to, so making that, I think, more user-friendly, finding some of the stuff, I think, was part of that conversation. Like, I know, like, maybe where to kind of find a form or whatever, right? And then you go there and it's not there. So I just go to ChatGPT and make it find it for me. So I think, like, making our website maybe a little user-friendly sometimes.
The city staff has been evaluating AI bots to look into this, and so we are evaluating that. And I believe the budget allocation for the AI bot, but not for the website review at this point. I think we're going to have to use that website locally.
Yeah, I think it's a well-established older website that is very dense with a huge amount of information. And I think that's going to be a major job to upgrade the search capability. But possibly with the AI and the AI bots, et cetera, it's going to make it a lot easier. I think 2 years ago, it would be almost insurmountable. But
Yeah,
right now, I have to go in the back door to find, I have to use AI to find it.
and that,
Vice Mayor.
thank you, that, because I think an update to that would take so much money because of all
That's what
that
I'm
have to take, so I didn't see that would be budgeted now, but to know that there's kind of thoughts on how to make it more user friendly, it helps me think that we are encompassing. So maybe if we got deliverable, we add something around what we're attempting with the website.
Through your council research, and I've added that as a note to add them. To research, implement, deploy AI support for the website. Also, as I envision this, I envision deploying Brandon and Owen Schill to work with IT. They've done some of that just to kind of clean it up. And to be honest with you, IT did recognize the need to redo the website, which we did not move through in the city manager's budget recommendation, just simply because of the load staff's been under the past few years with software and other changes, a little bit daunting at this point.
Do you have, it looked like you were asking.
Thank you, Councilor, everybody. I might have lost my train of thought. Or I was gonna say something sassy about a digital billboard. I did have one thought, and forgive me, Mayor, but because we are kind of in a council retreat part 2 session,
Yes,
would it be appropriate for us to suspend our rules so we can have discussion and not have to push everything through you?
I think it would be. I was about to suggest that.
That would be nice. We could all back off our mics a little bit.
Because I keep-
The gain is too.
I'm sitting here reading this and Councilor O'Doherty's going, oh, someone wants a question.
Yeah.
So I think that sounds good.
Did we have a motion in a second then?
Oh,
This is,
can I have a motion?
The end of the table.
Yes, I'll, thank you, Mayor. I will motion that we suspend our rules of procedure in terms of, Robert's rules addressing comment and conversations, so we can have an open discussion.
Second. I have a motion from Bowling and I think Bill came in on that as well. Second for Bill.
2/3 vote, so.
Can I do a
Voice vote.
voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Curious to know if that microphone is picking up well enough.
There's a control panel back there, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to use that one. I don't know.
I wonder if our other directors would come up here, so that we wouldn't need the mics, except for what's picking up there.
I think we have room.
I do think online, we have quite a lot of the Drug Safety Commission and Ranch guys right here. And people online notice, even in smaller settings, it's just the owl. It's hard to hear.
It is hard to hear.
So these really do improve it for everyone.
So I think what Chris was telling us is to not have the microphone pointing up, but have it like that way. Right?
Sharon's can't point out their program.
No,
No, you have,
that's good.
that's the wrong place. It's down here. There you go.
I know it's a bunch of things. Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
See.
Onboarded.
That just puts another microphone closer to the neighbor still. Okay. Gives us 2 sources.
Do you think it's all right if we move with Councilor Bowling out messing with the microphone?
Nancy, thanks.
The next section was, we had to educate the community on the importance of the 6 and 5 pennies. Of course, the 6 pennies comes up in May. I don't know if we're gonna have the goals to council ahead of that, take it down to just 5th penny. And this is similar to what we've had in past years as far as the election cycle. You know, work with Albany County Commissioners for the imposition of any obligation tax, and then community meetings, digital advertising, public meetings, et cetera. And that stuff will come through the city manager's office. So
Just as a friendly reminder, Owen sent an email that to record, he directed us to record specific lines. So record your line.
So,
Send it to him.
I don't write in.
so do we need a video of my shoes? That's what my only video would be.
Yeah.
Or like over.
We can work together.
I would be-
I'll work it out.
I get myself.
He just did some stuff, so we're seeing that makes a difference.
thank you, Counselor.
Good work.
So on that, as you read the community, I see part A, and then there's part B, work.
It's work with Albany County
Work.
Commissioners.
Oh, I get it. Okay, work with, I see.
Is that, do they have to ask, I mean, do we have to, the county and the city would have, and Rockford would have to agree to do the fifth penny on the ballot again? That has to be a three-way agreement or two ballots. But there's not the business of the allocation because that's built in, right?
Correct. Correct. The hard part is we don't know coming up with this fifth penny. I believe it's scheduled to be in November. The People's Initiative property tax will be on the November ballot, and the travel and tourism.
We were gonna have if Freedom has a birthday, pay 5 cents and give to Duncan Counselor tank. And that's how you learn about the fifth penny. So pay a nickel.
Yeah, sign me up.
Pay a nickel per ball, Duncan Counselor,
I like it.
and then you get a handout of the
The chief said to make sure you have a good cushion. Because when you fall, it starts to hurt your body.
Yeah. Yeah, those microphone pickup is really good in this room. The next one, continue to educate and engage with boards and commissions on city priorities. And for that, the deliverable is present or provide council goals to all boards and commissions. I think we should add another one is ensure staff and counselors fulfill their responsibilities with all boards and commissions. Does that sound fair?
And also part of the process has been that we present and provide the council goals to all boards and commissions as the foundation for their developing their compatible goals for each board and commission.
And then finally celebrate the 250th year of America's Declaration via promoting volunteerism. Of course, we started on that already with the America 250 Challenge, which is the volunteer challenge, but there'll be some stuff in that Freedom's birthday, some other things. So I think we've already deployed that initiative. We just got to continue to advertise it, get it moving. I was told just last week that there's a school with 250 students that are going to go out and pick up trash for 1 hour.
I love it. I love it. That's perfect.
So, city manager, do we have a way to get like quarterly presentations or numbers about volunteer metrics that people are signing up to the city's portal?
Yeah.
Like, I would just love to share that out. Maybe that's annually, maybe that's, yeah, you know, that could be something. I don't know how frequent that would need to be, but I feel like people are using it. You know, Councilor Doherty's been out doing trash 2 days in a row.
I want double hours for the landfill.
But, and I know you as well, but I think, you know, that's maybe separate from the 250 thing, maybe it's all together, but just sharing that out in the community, I think is really important.
So maybe, how about if we do it, add to the goal and just,
Or
report volunteerism.
City manager, what school is doing 250 volunteers?
Counselor Shumway, I'm not sure.
If we could do that and challenge, we could do that and challenge the other schools to match that. We would have, you know, quite the core.
Counselor Shumway, I'll visit with Brandon.
Okay.
And do you know if during cleanup, when they were bringing them through the app, were we concurrently promoting the 250 challenge? Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Any questions on or changes to section B? We'll move on to C, establish citywide parking plan by fiscal year 28. This is one that I think I would like to talk about, maybe scoping it down a little bit. It's a massive goal. I would like us to maybe direct to look at 2 sections, and then hopefully in a year we could look at another section. So if there's anything that I would encourage here is establish this a parking plan for downtown and the UW area, if that was amenable to the groups, to the council. And Councilor Lockhart, I know this one's near and dear to your heart. Does that sound acceptable to you? Big time there.
Say that again, John, please.
So we're gonna change that scope to where we focus on the downtown and then the residential UW interface, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I think that's more doable, especially by FY 28.
I still think it will take forever and nobody will be happy.
They've got a, I do have a plan.
Period.
Next week, we'll be at the work session, and the point of the work session is to establish the scope, develop the timeline, and who's going to be on the task force. And then that'll give us a chance to hopefully be focused, nimble, and time sensitive to get some stuff back to council by fiscal year 28 for those 2 areas. So that's the goal at that point.
I have a question on that task force. Is that intended to be kind of a temporary task force or something that is ongoing?
I guess I would see that we would do it based on the scope that we initiate first, in downtown and UW residential. And then maybe we establish another one that looks at whether it's RV parking or junk on the streets, that type of thing. And we have it change up just a little bit as we go through and as the scope changes for the parking issues. So I'd imagine once we get a solution in place and figure out where we're going, that it would be a new task force to take over. I'm not really promoting a new board or commission to be
Thank you. That's what I was.
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
I'd like the task force to be limited to the scope that we develop.
Just striking citywide.
And is there a point that we start thinking about a parking deck? Is there a point that we start thinking about a parking deck in the downtown area?
Parking structure, parking. Yeah. Honorable Mayor, through you, interestingly, I was down at a meeting with some folks in Greeley on Friday, and we were talking about public-private partnership. They had actually just recently constructed a parking structure in Greeley with $68,000 per space.
60 how much?
68,000 per space.
And furthermore, the concrete, I understand, is like 20 to 30 years of the precast concrete. So people don't think about the maintenance. So it's a extremely expensive thing that then you have, it's not like you just build it and then you don't have to worry about it. So I don't see how we do something like that when the downtown businesses are saying that the rents are going up. So I don't know how. Yeah.
Honorable Mayor, I don't have a negative connotation of parking structures. I was in Casper when they built their downtown one. They obviously had some concerns, some mistakes. I was in Cheyenne when they built the one downtown, and it actually turned out to be beautiful. It has its functionality. So I believe there's a value to the parking structure. For me, though, in a community like Laramie, where unfortunately we're already starting behind the 8 ball when we're missing 30% of our property tax. It's a difficult venture to pick up unless we have that philanthropy. Now, visiting with the folks at the public-private partnership, they talk about a lot of ways to do stuff. You know, do they build the police department and we lease it back from them, and they use that revenue to offset the parking structure. There's all sorts of ideas out there to try to work on some ways to do it. Do I think it has value in our downtown? I absolutely do think it could have some value in our downtown, but if this comes down to that cost benefit analysis that has to be done to make sure that it happens.
Thank you.
I don't want to get in the weeds too much, but I feel like my research and kind of what the city manager says, most parking garages never pay themselves off for end of the lifetime, kind of what we're hinting at with the lifespan. But I guess with the amount of money that would cost, or maybe depending on what this task force would create, the public transit options, that could be a fraction of that cost to hopefully move people effectively with stops in front of businesses downtown. I think would feel way better use of taxpayer money, but I'm in the weeds.
And Councilor Frieda, I do want to, this is about the task force discussion. That task force may come forward and say the city needs to actively work towards the parking structure, right? And then we can start figuring out that work. But it's, I don't have a problem stretching and doing exciting stuff and big stuff. But there's stuff that I love in this community. Water treatment, plant replacement. I love stretching and thinking about that. But the Reconnect West plan, when it talked about another exit out of West Laramie parking structure, I love those grand ideas. And that's what makes Laramie great. We just have to figure out how to get there.
City manager, can I have I know you don't know the whole history of Laramie, but I feel like parking my 15 years here has always been an issue. So do you know how many parking plans or studies or, you know, ballpark that we've tried to work on in the city?
I do not. I know there's been some different plans, some different ideas, but I think it's oftentimes you get through these processes, you run into those pitfalls or those blockades, and nobody can get moved forward. And we just got to make sure that we have the resolve to break. I keep using breakthrough, but we got to find a way to break through to do the next thing. Chief Brown and I even probably differ in opinion. I think the best parking correction of inappropriate parking is consistent, fair enforcement. Well, that he's also of the generation, he likes a little technology, so he would like AI to do that. Well, I don't know that AI solves it, but we have to figure out how we do that, right? All right, we'll keep moving along. Establish surface water. I didn't skip ahead. Establish a surface water drainage division utilizing assigned reserves to provide for enhanced maintenance of the surface water drainage system. While preparing the fiscal year 2027 budget recommendation, develop a budget, council will see that. As part of the 2027 budget adoption, commit general fund reserves to fund this enhanced level of service for a period of 3 to 4 years. Council will see that. And as financial activity is recorded in 2027, ensure all costs of performing surface water drainage maintenance are transferred to the division. Moving to that over here. And so that's the plan with surface water drainage at this point.
And I thought we talked about, and this may be covered with what we were talking with the communications person, but I think it has to be a real deliberate thing showing what has been done. I would love for those videos. So please, here's what this stormwater drain looked like before, and here's what happened. Here's how many miles we've done. We again lost. We did good for the city. It's not part of it. So I think I would like it to be really explicit that we need to demonstrate to our constituents what we're doing with stormwater and why we do it. So
I would like to mention there's a rumor that's horribly wrong on the internet currently. Our spec isn't going towards the waiver of this, it's going to capital projects, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that's clear to any public who's watching or that might watch later, that our spent six penny will not fund this department, it will fund capital projects, and I just want to make sure that was clear.
I just to add to this, and I know Director Webb isn't here, but just talking about the amount of streets that we sweep and the miles, I mean, the way your feet is, it is truly incredible. It's also a never ending job. And so sharing that story, and also, you know, this is maybe one of the city council throwing an idea of hoping someone can hit it, but, you know, trying to figure out a way if we do get a new division to create some sort of street sweeping plan, or even, you know, I know that Director Webb and other folks have been thinking about that for a long time, and they have a plan, but I guess updating that to be able to provide a schedule that says, you know, here's when your street is, you know, maybe we start with small couple blocks and see what that looks like. But again, that goes back to our communication issue. How do we get people's cars and RVs and stuff out on the street? But I feel like that's such a big part of that. Maybe we have a drainage division that could tackle some of that.
But Councilor Freed, that is number 5 under that section. So the plan is to work with the Public Works Director by evaluating the current program, and then work on operational efficiency, staffing, and other resources to improve the streets.
Thanks.
Good job.
I got one.
Go ahead.
But a check.
What's this word out here?
I found one that we kept talking. Yeah.
If we keep moving, support the reconnect funding, planning, construction related to specific projects indicated in the plan. You know, the one thing that I will say to this that I do love is the city went through and managed the plan and approved the plan, and now council is actually taking the action to implement some of those pieces. So through the fiscal year 2027 budget recommendation, specific language supporting the Reconnect West Laramie plan and specific capital projects will be highlighted. The city manager's office will work with appropriate members of the leadership team to evaluate, prioritize, and fund other projects developed in the plan. Those are, just so you know, Director Bork had a pre-bid meeting on the west side, West Laramie connector. Just last Friday, we have 7 land holders that we're hoping to see bids from in 2 weeks, I would assume. May 5th. So we should be opening bids on that project, and through the budget and upcoming budget recommendations, we'll probably be needing some budget amendments and some stuff to make sure that project goes. So that is the first critical project to that. Then after that, we've got projects that are detailed, maybe not in fiscal year 27 because this one's going on, but in future fiscal years to help make that connection become a reality. I'll keep moving. The next one's about continue the conversation with the University of Wyoming to support the recommendation of the public transportation plan through increased community bus stops and routes. And I think the mayor, the vice mayor, and myself will continue to collaborate with the president, the transportation team on the addition of future routes and discussions. We had heard recently that there was some discussion about potential route into West Laramie, so that we appreciate that, but we've got to continue those discussions. And then finally, after we skip over number 5, continue improving parks, trails, facilities, and recreation programs, and support the upcoming parks, trail, and recreation projects through the fiscal year 27 budget adoption, support grant acquisition through the approval of resolutions that support these projects. And I think council's been good about that, but that also puts the onus on staff to continue to look for additional funds to make sure that these projects are the value that we've seen in the past.
I will not blunder yet, but I will say that Director Bork had a presentation of Park Street and Rec Board that was really, I think, highly regarded about the infrastructure projects that Park Street and Rec are working on. And so it seems like the public is, from that board and other members there, I think people are really excited about them.
Any questions, suggestions, changes in that section at this point?
Last grade.
We'll move on to economic development. I think one of the things that you'll see as a redundancy through the next two codes is evaluate the Unified Development Code and propose changes become more permissive towards commercial development fiscal year 27. Support staff in the implementation of developer focused meetings used to generate concepts that move toward more permissive changes in the Unified Development Code. One of those most notably is that we're going to have to probably potentially start looking at for commercial and residential is the infrastructure requirements and how they're funded. We're going to have to make some decisions and get that money deployed that has been set aside so that we can start to see some housing starts come into this place. One of my ideas, I do not want to see that just go out as grant money. I want to see some kind of revolving loan fund so that that $5 million is not just flat $5 million, that we can turn it into 10, 12.5, whatever we can turn it into through partial repayments to try to make sure these projects get going. I do anticipate that you may see a project or a request from community economic development on a project here soon to deploy some of that funding. I think I do believe that there are now for meetings that the community economic development building department are leading towards that. We just on Tuesday night, you heard about building code changes that we're moving forward based out of those meetings. And I think that's our best bet to making the shift that's already needed. Evaluate and implement a sustainable financial plan to fund achievable recommendations from the community sports facility study by fiscal year 28. So Director Borg's currently working on that. Yeah, let's hear the update.
So we are, I would say, kind of midstream right now we're about midstream right now. Oh, yeah, we go. All right. We're far back. We're continuing to work. In fact, this weekend, we have one of our last full big community engagement pushes. We're going to be doing a pop-up engagement activity on Friday. We're still trying to determine a location, but we're planning on something downtown. And then we're also going to be at the Home Garden Show and collecting community engagement. If you come by and fill out a survey, if you haven't already, this is the short one-page survey. We're giving out one of those camera bird feeders
Yes, I'm totally gonna fill out the survey.
What's that? Yeah, I know, sorry.
So excited. Okay.
But we also have gotten our results back from our statistically validated survey as well. Nobody except in-house staff has seen that yet. I was getting ready to pass it on to the city manager. Very interesting, made 355 responses, which gives us a 5% plus or minus margin of error with a 95% durability of the survey. I don't want to spoil the surprise, so I'll wait on some of the big results when we make a community presentation. We've also been very engaged with the University of Wyoming students in the work program. We've had 3 students that are working on a capstone project. So they've been doing a lot of community engagement, both on campus and around the community. In fact, they're wrapping their program up. They're going to be presenting to the Park Street Rec Board at their May 13th PTR board meeting. And so it is moving along. Part of what's going on this week also is we have one of our consultants in town right now that they just got here doing our park survey and a conditional analysis. We've had Parker Ricker CCAT here working on our facilities survey and conditional analyses. So it is moving along. We still anticipate to be on track for a August or September final results and presentation to the council. But I can tell you, just as a teaser, that the results are very compelling for the statistically validated survey results for top priorities, but it also dove into usages and usage trends and barriers to participation and lots of other really good meaty data. So I'm really excited to see that coming along.
Thank you, Director Ward. One note to this is, you know, with the change in city manager and change in operations, Director Wade and I are basically proposing a budget, a one-year budget, not a biennial budget. And what that allows us to do is work through the study, evaluate, and then make changes in the fiscal year 28 to try to look at what projects are feasibly financeable and sustainable for moving forward. And this was one of the reasons you see so much changing in our world that we wanted to have that flexibility for the next couple of years to try to line out a plan for Laramie. I love all the headshakes.
So anyway, I ask questions kind of overarching, but hear Director Board talk about surveys. I feel like we do a ton of surveys, and that's really the grounds that we get, feedback, right? I mean, we utilize not contractors, consultants maybe to facilitate surveys, and I'm just thinking of my wheels are turning. I want to see how we can consolidate those surveys. Maybe it's the ON and already someone in that role, but there's I feel like that's awesome to get statistically validated surveys and getting that out and getting participation that we can then lean on that time in our community. So I really appreciate that. And
Councilor Frieda, if I hear you're worried about the quantity of surveys that the city's doing.
Well, I think we can always have more because it's such a passive way to get feedback. I mean, I guess it's an active way too, but more so, how can we maintain that we can get 355 peer participants, or how do we get where do we get 3,000 participants? Could that even happen in a community of 30,000? I don't know the answer. I'm sure there's someone who studies that, but I just appreciate George Bork saying statistically accurate, whatever that means, but being able to stand on that, because that really then informs city staff and city council of, what people are saying. We can get 300 responses, versus 20 comments in a public meeting. I mean, that seems to be super helpful in determining where we spend our time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the hard part around surveys when you talk about what's statistically valid and the profession that we're in, data is what it's all about. Get as much data as you can, so you survey as much as you can with the data. And admittedly so, probably data and the desire to read data and use data has never been high on my priority list. I always thought we had a right here and confusion of what's right. So that's been one of the things that I've oftentimes struggled with. I concern myself that we've oversaturated the survey data, whether it's public meeting after public meeting or survey after survey, if there's some exhaustion in the community about questions that are being asked. So it's that balance. Statistically validated survey like Director Bork did, those come at a pretty significant cost too. And so we've been using Zen City to provide that survey at a little bit lesser cost, a little bit more organic through social media, to drive to get the data that we need to make some of the decisions that we make. But that's it. I understand what you're saying. I wish I knew the right way around it.
I was thinking as a bridge. I think what is true is that we all have a sincere desire to listen to people, and sometimes we don't know how, to go get that feedback that we're looking for. We've had a lot of engagement with the comp plan, and then we've had a lot of engagement with the Parks and Rec study, both of which have been conducted by consultants. And so there probably are some seeds of ideas there that we can deploy on our own without a lot of extra resources in a way that feels like us and feels really personable, and we're still getting out and connecting with community members, so that it's not the data overload of the past, which I also kind of have a revulsion against, so I understand that. But I think we can copy and mimic some of the things that we see are working, and even if they're not a perfect application, perhaps we get more that we all can work with to make better decisions.
If I get out of that sports complex, I have a couple of friends that are really into it. They watch the city council meeting as far as, they know about the survey or, what's been going on so far. They asked me, and they're really happy about it. And they even said they would like to start, if it does start going into fruition, a committee or an organization help raise funds privately. They're like way into it. They're like, we will do this. you know, it's something we need. So I was really excited to hear something like that. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here, so we can keep them informed of it, because enthusiasm, people will get behind that. Let's just find out how much it's gonna cost. You know, but I think it would get them excited, you know, but on streets don't get them excited, that gets them excited.
And Aaron and I were at the library grand opening from the renovation, and much of that was possible through private foundation and funding.
And a federal grant.
And the huge federal grant, but it would not have been, the federal grant would not have carried it through without that funding. So to have some people ready to do a group.
Along those funding lines, I think that the Parks and Recreation Department, Mike, will be no different, has shown a real affinity for grant acquisition to support projects as we move forward. It's just about where you line it up and make sure you're in the right place. So we've got those opportunities also. Thank you, Councilor Longer. The final one under economic development is identify and support infrastructure for development zones for both commercial investment in Laramie. You know, one of the ones that we've done by that is the specific purpose excise tax, the Bill Nye. Specific portion of that is from, I think we've got it listed from 3rd to 15th, but it's 5th to 15th. You know, the whole portion of that actually opens up commercial area for us in a new part of town. Staff is working, and you will see some information coming through on potential 30th Street or 30th Street interchange with White Oak, which opens up another commercial zone. And then, as I'm sure you've all heard me probably ad nauseum, is that we need population to drive commercial development. I know a lot of the focus seems like it's on West Side or West Laramie, but as we can gain population there, the biggest thing that I hear when I'm out is the city needs to put a grocery store in West Laramie. The city doesn't place commercial places, right? The city provides the infrastructure and the development for the commercial places, the land, but they do their market research and they know what's available. I truly believe that if we can continue to increase the density West Side, West Laramie, that we can get a grocery store or some anchor commercial to land in that area to provide that business. And so we've got those opportunities. We continue to work with the country club and a landowner out there about water provisions and development opportunities that can drive those numbers that are out west, that will continue to add to that number that will hopefully drive that commercial. And that's where I see the city having the best involvement.
I thought Bill Nye was for residential.
So, Councilor Doherty, remember the Bill Nye, we counted out in phases. Phase 1 was the far east. Phase 2 is I'm going to say the Middle East. Phase 3 is the Middle West. And then phase 4 is the West. The one that we carved out specifically for Bill Nye and the specific purpose access tax is more related to commercial development than residential. The other section of streets that have Bill Nye indicated in it, which is the phase, I'm going to say the Middle West, is residential based. Phase 2 and phase 1 are residential based, but it's such a large corridor that when it gets down towards it's already developed from 19th to 15th. And when you go from 15th to 9th, that's built more for commercial right through that section. We'll move on to housing. Use existing new tools, Albany County Housing Land Trust, tax increment financing, feeder for to increase housing availability within the community. I think it goes without saying that we've been doing that. We'll support the Albany County Housing Land Trust, work on the West Side tax increment financing project, any future tax increment financing requests, updating the website with information and programs like feeder for to make the community more aware and desire to develop policy around a $5 million fund. And that $5 million is not enough. I'm going to tell you that right now, but it's the start for what we can do. And this lands Councilor Richardson with your comment last night that we have to find a way to provide those resources. I know the north side north outfall line was discussed last night that heavily. If you think about it, it's easements that have been holding that up. I believe that we're financed, we're kind of under design, we just can't get the easements locked in and get that done. And we were able to finally get them with the north side water tank. And I believe we will get them with the north side outfall, which is the sewer for that provision. It's just taken a little bit of time to get those in.
I really like that this is one of our goals because I was talking to the vice mayor and Councilor Lockhart today, and I think as this plan continues, it would have made last night's vote, at least for me, easier and a different vote that voted, because there would be a plan and funds to kind of help that plan. So I do really like that the $5 million fund, you're thinking more of like half loan, however that looks. So we can build that so that the next time something like that happens, oh, well, you need a lift station, fill this application out, right? So I like the forward thinking here because it will help future council make harder decisions little easier.
Absolutely. What's up, dirty?
If we continue to seek new resources, tools, and ideas in housing and construction in Laramie, research and find tools that can promote housing construction in Laramie, including pre-manufacturers or other forms of housing construction. Evaluate the provision of approved plans for homes that could be easily permitted and constructed on city platted lots. And planning division has been working on that currently and getting ready to bring forward to council a contract to approve to have somebody design some off-the-shelf plans for houses so that if you do have a city lot and you know what size it is, you come in, you pick your plan, you buy it for whatever the cost is, it's permitted in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and away you go.
Wow.
So
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
it's easy in concept to say, but it's
Sure.
very difficult to do, but it'll be a process that we'll be working through. And then finally, evaluate the Unified Development Code and proposed changes become more permissive towards housing development. And that again continues with the meetings, the discussions, everything we can do to try to become more permissive to make sure that we can get those housings going. I truthfully can envision a way where, quite frankly, this council and future councils for the next few years might be pushed into hard decisions where you have to look at removing some code requirements that are nice, but they also do provide some inhibiting factors towards housing development. And so unfortunately, we're gonna have some hard decisions. We do have a fantastic code that builds fantastic stuff and creates for great development. But if we want to solve this, it might be time to become radical and figure out what changes we need to make so get housing in place.
I have a video idea that just popped in my head. And I think it goes along with this. We always hear that council doesn't listen or city staff doesn't listen, right? We could put a video together that was like, hey, here's what came out of those contractor meetings, and here is what council just changed, right? Kind of to get ahead of some of that council doesn't listen, staff doesn't listen. And I think it would be like public facing of, no, we did listen, and here's what we changed already. And I think it might make some of those future conversations maybe a little easier, maybe not, but just a thought.
We could play 24/7 on that digital billboard that Jim's gonna put.
That's so funny.
And maybe with
The city
streets,
put those all over
Yeah.
the place up and voted it down.
I'm thinking high level iPads, not distracting drivers.
But that's the
Would like to, I'd like to go back to the commercial and report a little bit of success and I did call Director Wade yesterday and tell her about one thing that I'm incredibly proud about. I just hope it comes to fruition, but I'm sure you've all seen the 2 commercial buildings on Grand Avenue or this, right? that have sat empty since 2014. Or not this, I'm sorry, to Imperial, it's Sherman Hills Road in Imperial Heights. If you drive out Grand Avenue, to the interstate on one side, those properties were bound up because they didn't get built to the site plan and the owner didn't want to make the corrections and staff was a little bit bound up on how to do that. We were able to get everybody together, turn the view upside down, get to approved site plan submittals, a new SSI, and get those projects moving forward to where that contractor is planning on finishing up the site plan, and hopefully those buildings will be on the market or used by commercial here in 3-4 months. So wow.
Very good.
Who owns those?
Where
is it?
Who owns those?
Max Cooper.
Oh, that's Max's.
Yeah. So
What's across the street?
do you know where Heights Park is? There's 2 little brick commercial buildings kind of across from where Grand Avenue Nursery was at one point, right there. So I just, every time I went by, I hated seeing them. I hated seeing them unused, unfulfilled.
They have like a door that comes out and it drives back.
There you go.
So clearly, yeah, it wasn't being used, but they didn't know they were commercial.
Yeah, those are commercial buildings, so we have managed to get an approved site plan, approved SSI, and that contractor has all the permissions to move forward to finish out and get those site plans in place. So I'm pretty excited about that because it's been a long time coming. So, and it shows a change in city staff as far as becoming a little more permissive and understanding what we're doing. So I really would like to commend Derek Tatey for stepping through that door.
That's great.
This is still over.
What kind of businesses been building places?
Say that.
Councilor Dory, I can see dental offices, so maybe small medical, maybe some kind of accounting.
So that's the church.
Next to the sheriff.
And we really need
That's the-
professional office.
They're beautiful.
North of the
They're south too. They're
That's
south
what
and
it's the east.
about that way on your side. But, you know,
That's
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's good news.
With that, I think we're at the end of what were the goals. I feel like we've got consensus around those, like we can get those moved into resolution, but I do know there are some other goals that councilors would like to talk about, add, and we can do that. Move through. We'll give you about 4 minutes.
As Jen Wade knows, every month when we look at that financial report, the mayor and I are like, oh, how much we're spending on power. And it's
Phenomenal.
So I would like to seek opportunities to reduce energy consumption or supplement power with our, local generation.
With the lights.
There went your billboard.
I wrote it here.
And for us to really look at how we can get those numbers down.
And we know that if that solar project goes through, if we could dedicate some portion of whatever we gain from that lease to say, we're gonna fill up every rooftop that we can, so that we can help control this cost, because it's just going up. And they just announced that they're not going to use renewables with Rocky Mountain Power, so the cost is going up. So I would really like to have a goal to seek more opportunities and put on our solar. I mean, when you see the size of that roof out here, and how little 25 kilowatts is on that roof. And we have such a big footprint anyway. And so many buildings that need power. And we noticed that for the Ice and Event Center and for the rec center, we have 25 kilowatts at each of those sites. But we noticed that there's 2 bills.
There's 2 meters.
So is that 2 meters? There's 2 bills. There's Ice and Events and there's 2 bills.
There's 2, so that it indicates that there's 2 meters there.
That's how we interpret.
And we're talking like $12,000 per meter. And so do we only have 25, and are we allowed to have 25 per meter? So Isonovez has 2 electric bills. And when we asked about that, it's going to be 2 meters.
Well, we assume it's 2 meters, yes, it's 2 bills.
Yeah, that's the honorable mention you, the work that we've done down there. I'm not aware of there being 2 meters.
Yeah, so I don't know why it's broken into 2.
Why it's broken
Maybe it's
into 2.
different. You get above a certain amount, then you go to a different rate.
This is the first time I'm hearing this concern, I guess, so.
This was a question at the last finance committee meeting, and because I've been writing the budget book, I haven't even looked at it. And so I can't give you feedback on whether that's right or not.
Okay.
We can do it later.
But I will look at that and I will respond.
Because we're curious about the double bill and why is that? And is it 2 meters? And you're saying with the work that it isn't, but it could be. And the other thing, if it was, then we would qualify for another 25 if there were 2 meters. And then the third question that we had was, I know that out of the airport, when they did an efficiency check on their solar, they were not getting what they thought they were getting.
They weren't connected back to they weren't getting credited, they weren't putting power back to the grid until.
So do we need to maybe do a check on ours for efficiency to make sure we're getting everything we can out of it?
I appreciate hearing that, and we can definitely check on that. I think that putting a goal under financial sustainability about efforting ways to reduce energy consumption through either renewables or however we do it. Again, I hope the decisions that we make and continue to make are constantly better for us. I have to tell you, through the City Hall Annex project, the heat loss change that we're solving is going to be pretty phenomenal, and I hope that we'll see that. But for us to move through is going to be important. So I think for me, Councilor Doherty, what I hear is under financial sustainability that we add something in there about reducing energy consumption.
And you said you do that as a matter of course. I would, like, that's what you do. You're not going to say, oh, that's wasting more energy. But I want it to be explicit in our goals because our constituents would like us to save energy too. And and also like think of solar, if that goes and if we could dedicate some of that revenue toward making our own energy, I think that would be a win-win.
Councilor Doherty, the hard part in solar is that's part of the water enterprise fund.
So only that, like, we'll leave it there. But we also could use solar at the ranch because I know those pivot. Those irrigators take a lot of energy, so.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to spit that out.
I think we need to have a conversation with Rocky Mountain Power. My understanding is renewables are being subsidized because it's more efficient and less expensive to use the sources that most people use. And so we're going to switch over to wind, solar, and all that. It may be more expensive in the end because of the cost and the time for recapture of the investment. So I think we need to be careful. We don't just go all into solar, all into wind, and all into that, but look at what is the most cost-effective way for us to do that. I think conservation is very important. To make sure that we're using, we're doing things that are conservative in the use of our energy, but not to go and invest in something that's going to be more expensive in the long run.
I have to counter that because the states where they are using alternative energy, like Texas, their rates are coming down. And then when Rocky Mountain Power just said, we have to stick to coal. Coal, you have to keep running that all the time. You can't just turn it on and off. You got to keep running. Sure. And it costs more than the renewables. Places that have renewables are bringing their prices down.
Texas is different than mine.
No, yeah, but Utah.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm sure a lot of people with a lot of effort into this, that look at it very carefully, and we need to make sure that we have that conversation before we make a big investment in wind and solar.
I have no problem. We can get that under fiscal responsibility. Financial sustainability. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just wanna, just because it came up and I don't remember exactly the question from finance committee, and I'll look at that probably sometime early next week. There is only one meter at the Accident Center, so I did just confirm that, just 'cause I don't want people to worry.
Right.
I just looked at the invoice.
Okay. So somehow the invoice is broken into two parts, and it probably has to do with the rate for the different, you know, how once you get above a certain amount, and charge a different rate.
Are there other goals that we want to try to add at this point?
I just am wondering if there are some environmental goals that we want to explicate. Such as to continue to enhance recycling. I mean, are there other environmental goals? We've done the update of the Casper Aquifer Protection document. Are there legislative things that we need to do to bring that forward into ordinance? Are there things that we need to do for the next step of the path?
Like supporting monitoring.
Exactly. And then we've got the well thing that's going, and that's going to be big. And
It's stuff we're doing anyway.
so there are suggestions of what we need to do. Is there ordinance work that we need to do so that we're able to require these suggestions that came out in the CAP? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was my understanding that the next step would be legislative.
Mayor, I hear you're talking about two goals. So under environmental, we had continue to enhance our recycling program. And then number two, some stuff we've been in CAP with some major goals with the well monitoring or ordinance changes that we need to do. Okay. But nobody.
Is there anything else environmental?
We can make sure those goals are included in the resolution and give you a quick review before they come through, for sure.
And do we want to state that we continue to work toward carbon neutrality by?
Oh, but I think if we reduce our energy, we are doing that.
Okay.
Okay. No problem there. Any others?
The other one I put in, so many of our reports talk about quality of life, our plans. And is there anything under safety, well-being, and quality of life that we want to explicate, that we want the public to be aware that there are things that we're definitely doing to move quality of life forward? It's such a prominent part of the plans. But maybe the plans are as inclusive as we need to be. I'm just asking, do you think that under safety, well-being, quality of life, these were in 2025. So I went back and just looked at some previous goals that we'd had, and I'm just wondering if we think we need to do that. I think we certainly cover it in our mission, in our vision statement.
I think we cover it in our vision statement. I think we address all of those things throughout this entire process. And so I think for the sake of just kind of being concise and efficient, I mean, we can all explain to constituents like why housing, addresses well-being and,
Quality of life,
yeah.
the parks, quality of life,
Yeah,
that it's throughout everything. Okay,
It
so we
also
crossed
doesn't
that
cover
one.
mud of, our goals to, if we wanted to include everything that we do, this goal sheet would be, I don't know, 100 pages, right? And I think that's where our public, our new Owen position, I think that position alone is gonna help let the public know, like, hey, this wasn't a goal, however, like, council has been working on X, Y, Z, why we're working on A, B, C. And I think, I really do love that idea of Owen getting ahead of some of that stuff to where now, one thing that I've heard since I've been on council is we have 50 goals, right? And we accomplish 4 of them.
I thought we accomplished virtually all of them.
We did.
From
We
start to
accomplished
finish.
a lot more before.
Right, from start to finish, right?
Because
Right, many are ongoing and the public doesn't see that.
Right.
So I think I do like the breaking this up fiscal year because now we can say we did achieve this. However, the ongoing stuff that we're still working on is this, right? Right.
So the two biggest, the place where most of our money goes is police and fire. And we don't even mention that we do anything about police and fire. And yet we do a lot for police and fire, like we hope to build a new, stuff that you're doing anyway, but we don't want to put this because we want this to be nice and short. But every time we do anything at city council, you bring something to us that says it's based on goal this.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for people to know that we're not just like, oh, Aaron's hippie stuff with the energy. Well, no, we support infrastructure. We do have the roads and the storms, but we are going to continue to support public safety, we don't have anything about that. And the mental health stuff with the police. That's a really big deal. I hear your version of people that get in the system. I'm so proud of those things. I would like that to show as a goal, since that's where most of our money goes. Police and fire, it should be reflected that we support that.
Yeah, that's a good. So we're proposing to build a new police station, a new fire station, and we don't have anything in our goals about that.
I think you bring up a good point. But I think it's kind of, we all know it's just probably.
It's just we take it for granted.
We don't highlight it.
Do we have one we call public safety? And it not only includes fire and police, but it could also be stormwater because that's public safety as well.
Continue to responsibly use taxpayer dollars to improve public safety infrastructure, programs, social services,
Yeah.
et cetera.
And then the deliverables would be toward the new police station, animal control, that's about public safety, the fire station.
It gets too long, but I think people need to see.
If we're spending millions of dollars, it should probably be in our goals.
I don't think it adds that much. If you make it just kind of a one chunk thing, like supporting public safety, and then it's ongoing support of XYZ, I don't think that is adding a huge.
I don't think it's adding a lot, but it's addressing, it's acknowledging.
Yeah.
I guess I would also add, and I don't know, man, it feels like we're going down a road I think is important to go down, but also we lean on so many of our nonprofits. We provide community partner funding for nonprofits to enhance the public safety and well-being of everyone in our community.
We absolutely
do. The workforce arm of kind of how we can operate in a community where social services are being felt, in addition to police and fire and safety response. So I'm just throwing that out there that I think it's a great way to highlight it.
And that could be encompassed in that deliverable as well, without getting too in depth, without getting too in the weeds. I think you can do that pretty
pretty.
I think that can be easy, and there's a number of things, the mental health, counseling, that caseworker program, all of that kind of fits under public safety, and those are our deliverables
Yeah.
that we're already delivering, so
Yeah.
we're going to deliver, are delivering.
Leverage nonprofits in the VOA and support fire, police, and shelter.
CIT training.
We've made some notes, we'll get those in there.
Yeah.
Don't make it complicated, right?
Yeah.
But.
I think that we have a large, environmentally concerned constituency in Laramie. And a number of organizations, and I think we've hit on two of the ones that people are really concerned about is the Casper Aquifer Protection, to enhance recycling. And the third that they're concerned about is, to promote, alternative energy sources. And that kind of hits multiple organizations and groups that are working, and they're very active, and so I think it addresses things we're doing, but it puts it out there, we're doing it.
Absolutely.
Yes, we're gonna have that waste characterization study results coming in soon.
Now you know why there were ancient scrolls.
And counselors, I understand what you're saying, and we can do that. We can get these on goals and make that something that we can work on and get there. So I think it'll
But
be.
that's not too much.
You're doing it
Still
anyway.
writing.
Let's get the credit for it, you know?
I'm wondering to simplify it, not this time, honestly, but maybe next time. It's 2 documents, right? One of them is like this one, because it's pretty simple and we can, and then you have the ongoing goals that it seems like.
The ongoing.
Since I've been on council, this has been a goal and we have achieved X, Y, Z. And then the next council.
It's like a progress.
Right. I wonder if that would make this easier for newer council members when they take less votes. That way, because then you come in and you're like, I don't know what goals to work on. And this was kind of a problem for me. Well, here's like the ongoing goals of council, right? So I wonder, like, maybe next time if this is like 2 documents, like here's the ongoing ones that have been goals for a while. Here's the short-term goals that we want to achieve in this fiscal year.
Yeah, and the ongoing ones are really the goals of a municipality. They're the standard goals that you have to have in a municipality. And then the details within that are what change. So I like that.
Don't go anywhere, Brandon. That's a great idea.
Would you pick something up in that? I'm gonna go drive a sweet.
Where are you gonna go? Unless you're campaign like.
I'm gonna go put billboards up.
Yeah,
Big lights.
With streets.
We're gonna have, we could do like 307 Meatstead, and we can do the truck, and we go park it all over town.
Be in the trailer. It'll be a glass trailer and I did.
And we just place it, we take a message and we drive it around town. And then all we have is just the canvas, and we print that out, and we put it on the sign, and we drive it around for a week.
That's your kiosk.
Yeah. Okay, we just get AI, we're little machines that just drive around town, has information about the city on it. That's all spend our money in. Every day, city manager, we let them out, it's the city hall, and we go around downtown, over the footbridge and.
I see holographic versions of that.
I do have a goal question though, if we could, because Councilor Rowling brought it up. I really do think something about the spec needs to be in here, because I know we talk about the 5th penny, right? I really truly think, like Councilor Rowling said, like we'll be responsible with that money. I think that really does need to be a goal, because there's a huge pushback saying, like those
Responsible use of taxpayer dollars.
right. So I think that should really be an ongoing goal respectful of,
For Counselor Newman, are we talking about,
just being,
the projects themselves or?
no, just being fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money. That's like a huge job.
That could be something that we the sustainability.
So
This
really it's like a field in
sustainability.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vision goal.
I think that is a goal though, or a responsibility, because I don't think of that as a goal. I think that's our.
I think it could be a no vote.
It is, it's
How would you word it as a goal under the SMART thing?
Would it be okay if I asked a few more questions?
Yeah.
Can we listen to that a little more so we really understand what you're going for? So when you first said that, I thought, well, oh, obviously, we'll just add a goal about making sure that we really do a good job prioritizing the spend. We really look at how we're going to deploy those resources to get the best value out of them. But I'm not sure that's what you mean. And so could you talk a little bit more about what you'd like to see? That's
No, I think that hits it because it's like, yeah, I think that hits it because, you know, the pushback that I've seen online is, well, don't vote for this tax because council has never done the project they said they were, or wasn't fiscal responsible with the money, whatever, however that looks, right? So I think
Stop looking.
I struggle with that a little bit though, because then you, like goals are out there to hope to meet, but you don't always reach them. So to put that as a goal that we're hoping we're fiscally responsible doesn't feel appropriate to me. Like that is our responsibility. It is not my goal. It is what I am here to do. Whether it looks like what you think it should look like or not is a different thing, but to have that as a goal feels
that kind of
a little like,
yeah.
So you're hoping that you.
I think it's.
Could it just be demonstrate under the deliverables, demonstrate, you know, like with our public, whatever, information office. Like you've been doing with, you know, like include maybe number one, I make a B. Demonstrate the fiscal. Anyway, demonstrate that you really spend it the way you said.
Brandon, I didn't realize that's what I was saying. I was just kind of speaking off the dome, but I think if what we're trying to say is that we want to just make a statement that we are responsible stewards of the financial resources provided to us by the taxpayer, then that goes in the value statement.
It goes in the value goals.
Then it goes here.
You know, I have been watching the specific purpose tax for 20 years. I don't see any time that we've ever diverted money to a, you know, that was specified for a project to something that we have not indicated. I think what we have to do is say we will remain committed to spending money on the specific purpose tax for the intended use. And I don't think that we have any history of diversion, which you've indicated, Jess, or that there are people saying that we do that. And I don't see that we've ever done that. It's always, in fact, money left over, we have to say we can't spend it on this, we have to spend it on that because that's what the ballot says and that's what it's indicated on. So for us to say that they are right, they are not right, they're wrong, and so we will remain committed to using specific purpose tax for the purpose that has been indicated on the ballot and leave it at that.
It almost sounds defensive. Yeah. Like you're trying to defend yourself against the very few people that make those allegations, so.
I wonder if in the value statement, we could just at the end add through fiscal responsibility for the community does it. But I also think it's a better place for the value.
You said something a few minutes ago that sounded more like a value statement.
Fiscal stewardship was the term.
Yeah. Yeah, we could just add that would kind of does.
Yeah, we'll write it in the way that you all intended. And so I think we've captured that spirit. I do think what we can always do better, and you see us doing more and more of this, if I think back even to the last spet, I don't know that there was a point after the voters approved it that we really sat down in a public meeting and talked about strategically how those resources were deployed. I don't know that we took the time to tell that big picture story. We just went out and did it. That's not what we'll do this time. And I think that will really help. And we can continue that narrative if we have council transitions, make sure we're talking about that frequently. Because I think if you're talking about those kinds of things frequently and from the beginning, there's just less soil that a seed like that could grow in to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if, sorry, please, go ahead.
I was saying you can't do anything about the internet being accessible.
Well, and I wonder if there are opportunities, because right now we have the little yard things up that say this was made possible, it's for 6 penny. And while it's in progress, we have that, but can we have something up all the time that says this? I mean, I think about the rec center in Casper, you walk into it and they have a penny above the door that is like, this was made possible because of your penny tax.
Before all the pennies go away.
Yeah, right.
People know what a penny is.
I don't know, not
I like
as
that.
expensive as the penny
I
that's
like that,
embedded in
have
the
a
building,
plaque.
but something that works, so people know
Like the-
all the time that, and are reminded of it.
Like the stuff during the Great Depression, all that stuff that
there you
was built, you know.
Any other comments or suggestions, questions?
I think
Thanks,
staff did a really good job.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Very
taking
good job. Thank you.
This is awesome.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Hearing none. We're not going to give updates because this is a special meeting. So I would say this meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Nancy, what else?